This is a serious matter. COVID-19, COVID-16-19, COVID-45 requires that Black women of all nations, of all creeds, of all generations, of all colors, of all faith, gather in one place together to refocus, to recenter, to reposition, and dare I say reckon with the future. I've gathered leading scholars, thinkers, artists, and innovators to be our digital guides and griots. Meet us where the power resides.
Hello, I'm Minister Martha Knight, and I bring you greetings from La Plata, Maryland. The future is now, the future is Black, and the future is womanist.
Oh my goodness, my box has just come in. Let me unbox because, look at it. Look at this beautiful box. The future is womanist. Shout out to Lauren Johnson at Providence and Design for designing this beautiful box. Let's dig in. What's in the box? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, first off, here's a little note about all of the fascinating things that are in this box. This might be one of the best swag boxes that I've ever seen. Let me jump right on in. What's in this box? Ooh. Yes, everything that I have in this box, I can now put in this bag. This is so swaggy. Okay, I think I'll just keep this on for the rest of the time. Ooh, look at this. This is Dr. Cannon's doodle. I can pin it on me and wear it throughout all of the sessions. What else is in this box? I think it's an apron so that I can be ready for the wind down, for the cooking masterclass with Chef Tenoria, and for coffee break, just in case, and to ensure that I don't get any spills on me, and I'll also be ready to go for paint night. What else is in this box? It's a pen. You know we like to write down our notes all the way during the session, and I think it's a journal so that I can keep my notes and make sure I have everything all in one central place. Ooh. Y'all about to see me swag out in these COVID streets. Check out this originally exclusively designed mask by Katie Geneva Cannon. I've been wanting one of these. Ooh, yes. It's Katie Geneva Cannon, the original edition in hardback, thanks to the Cannon family and the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership. What else is something big in this box? I think it's a canvas, an easel, a whole paint kit that can help me be ready for paint night. This is an amazing box. Can it get any better? All of the pieces, all of the arrangements, I love this box. Might be something else. Ooh, yes. When I need some water or a little refreshment, just so I can get through all of the sessions, I'm turning right to this tumbler so that I can drink and be filled. Y'all, I am officially ready. I'm all swagged out and I am ready for the 2021 Virtual Spring Conference, the hinges upon which the future swings. Now let me tell you, if you register early, you probably have your box already, but every registrant will receive a box. Y'all, jump into this unboxing joy.
I am Jessica Cameron, Associate Director for Multicultural Gender and Sexuality, bringing you all greetings from the Taylor Center for Equity and Inclusion at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. The future is now, the future is Black, the future is womanist.
From Jersey City, New Jersey. The future is now. The future is Black. The future is womanist.
Hi, I'm Timone Davis from Crown Point, Indiana. I work at Loyola University Chicago, and the future is womanist.
Greetings. I am Margarita Smith Narcisse, and we send you greetings from St. Paul School of Theology in Oklahoma and Kansas. I am a womanist.
I'm Julie Boyd. I am a womanist dream manifesting.
I am Julie Freeman. I am a womanist ally.
I am Angela Fritch Eklund. I am a womanist ally.
I am Latoya Shepherd. I am the womanist dream manifesting.
Affirming
womanist.
vibrant being,
Strong, soft, and sweet.
Every hue of the chocolate rainbow reflected, just as the prominent pops of purple to lavender in a lush field.
You are not a byproduct of maleness,
but a creation reflecting the divine.
You are regal,
like the ancestors descended from our native lands.
Their wildest dreams
manifesting
again and again
and again.
Your internal drum rhythm syncing with your soul's call to the work you must have.
Head held high.
Head held high.
Head held high.
Head held high.
you're practical and spiritual.
You sow seeds on the landscape of souls
while cultivating the land for an abundant harvest.
You're responsible
and communal.
Grounds watered often by tears of determination
because of your love grown in the struggle.
You're redemptive and self-loving.
Practicing rituals that make you abundantly valuable
to spaces that recognize
the unique gift that you are.
It's time for you to shine
like never before.
Accelerate your gifts.
Love like never before. Embrace your roundness.
Consume good food for your wellness and embrace the future.
The future is now.
Now.
The future is womanist.
Glow.
Regardless.
You
are womanist.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
A life-led sermon is that the basic idea is born in our living, out of vivid memories of things said and done.
Being a front runner in a lot of this work, people want to dismiss the truth that I speak as anecdotal. Okay, if I don't have a scientific database where I can prove that what I've experienced is true for so many people, then it's not true. So the epistemological sea of forgetfulness is when people take truth that hurts, truth that goes to the core of the being, truth that goes to the marrow of the bone, and people want to say, if you can't prove it scientifically, factually, then it doesn't exist. So what I try to encourage people to do is that kind of truth that stings like a serpent's tooth, that kind of truth that makes your teeth itch, the kind of truth that caused some people to lose their minds up in here. So even when people call your truth a lie, tell it anyway. Tell it anyway.
Jesus help me, Katie. What have you got me into again?
The power of this Leadership Institute is birthed from a powerful woman who dreamed so big that she wanted her legacy to outlive her.
It was integrated into everything she taught and who she was. So it wasn't just something that she wrote on a page or something that she thought about from a scholarly perspective. It is the way in which she lived, and the principles and the values of what it meant to be a womanist.
The center came together by her pulling together and calling together the different genius and creative spirits that she collected along the way. And so the center, she brought together several women who, from all different aspects of her life and all that she had met in all different ways, who could bring different creative genius, creative value, cultural value, and theological discourse to the center and to the conversations that created the center.
There was a room in New York City with Black women there.
Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon was there, Dr. Dolores Williams was there, and Dr. Alice Walker was there. And after they heard one another's presentations, Alice Walker said to Katie Cannon, I would love to fund the kind of work that you all are doing, especially as it reaches to Black women in community. And so Dr. Walker had invited Dr. Cannon to dream this. And it probably took about 10 years.
Dr. Cannon's vision of the center, it has long been alive, right? It's just that the opportunity that she had to actually give birth to the ideal and really make the ideal come to life. And for me, I saw that. I've had the privilege of knowing her for years, but I saw it come to life when unfortunately she broke her ankle and had to be still. And so it gave her the time to really focus and write out the plan and then make it come to life.
When I think about the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership, what first comes to mind for me is the naming of the center, beginning with Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, who we know is the first African-American woman ordained in the Presbyterian Church. She has been known as a trailblazer with a number of firsts, not only in the United Presbyterian Church that later became the PCUSA, but also in the sense of her being one of the first African-American women to graduate from Union Theological Seminary with a PhD in ethics. Her journey is quite extraordinary when we think about her as a decorated teacher, earning titles and accolades and honors from the American Academy of Religion to the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference to numerous groups and organizations that have celebrated her work and her witness, on top of her publications from most notably Black Womanist Ethics, which is her dissertation, and then Katie's Canon, and then Teaching, Preaching, and Womanist Theological Ethics, a reader. But one of the things I think that's most special about Dr. Cannon, in addition to her pedagogy, in addition to her scholarship, in addition to her active witness to leaders and thinkers and scholars throughout this nation, is that she was clear that what needed to come from her legacy was the formation of a center. So I always like to think of this in the context of, in April 2018, although there were iterations of the center earlier on, so Squaring the Womanist Circle and other smaller kinds of iterations, by 2018, in April of 2018, she formed the inaugural gathering of the Center for Womanist Leadership. That Center for Womanist Leadership is so prophetic, right? Because it speaks to womanism as a prophetic social movement that takes seriously the experiences of Black women, but also this sense that what is unique about the womanist discourse is that there are multiple interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary approaches. And in that way, what we need is to cultivate womanist leaders.
There was such celebration and excitement, and especially around Dr. Cannon's presence. I'm going like this because I remember Dr. Cannon and Alice Walker and probably members of the design team over there, and the energy and laughter that was happening because they left them mic'd at some point so you could hear their commentary. And now as a grad fellow at the center, I've been going through some of our digital archives and hearing and watching and seeing like the Squaring the Womanist Circle conferences from back, 2012, 2013, and learning that there were different iterations. And so seeing that this was a dream long coming.
Dr. Cannon was working on something that would ground womanist work at Union Presbyterian Seminary. In part it was significant because I know the history of our seminary. We are a seminary that was not necessarily fond of Black and brown people in our past. We are a seminary who had former professors of things like theology, like Robert Louis Dabney, who supported slavery and the denigration of Black and brown peoples. So to think that there's going to be a center at Union Presbyterian Seminary that focuses on womanist leadership, not just leadership not just Black leadership, but Black female leadership, is incredibly significant. So I think all of that was a significant moment in the history of our seminary for me, a significant moment for me as an African-American man raised to be a womanist since I first entered seminary. This was wonderful to see coming to be.
We started reading Bell Hooks and Lynn Westphal and Dolores Williams and Katie Cannon. And so afterwards, people started automatically saying, "You're a womanist, you're a womanist." And I had to question and ask myself, well, does my race and gender just automatically qualify me as such? And did I want to be pushed into yet another class of someone else's ideology? And so I set out on this path and this journey to find out, what is a womanist? What is womanist theology?
Womanism isn't just theology, it is everything. It comes up in the sciences, it's going to come up in the arts, it's going to come up in business, because it's about who you are.
I first became familiar with Dr. Cannon's work in 1993. I was in a PhD program in Louisville, Kentucky. I was working on my doctoral dissertation. I was working on a chapter more specifically that looked at the evolution of Protestant theological education in North America from its earliest beginnings until the early 1990s. I read as much of the literature on theological education as I could find. One of the books that I came across was entitled God's Fierce Whimsy, of which she was one of the authors and contributors. That was the book that began to change the way I thought of theological education. The Mudflower Collective that published that book in 1985 not only critiqued theological education as being primarily white, male-oriented, and Eurocentric, but began to look at issues of justice, of how we learn as well as what we learn, and how process is content in theological education. So when I read that, I thought, it's not enough to think about who teaches and what they teach, but even more so, how people learn and how people struggle with issues of justice, power, and differentness in the classroom, in the school, and in the church and world. It rocked my world. It pivoted the way that I thought about theological education.
When she came in to talk with me about the possibility of a Womanist Center here at the seminary, one of my concerns was that she came and talked to me about the possibility that she might be leading. She said that she was thinking about teaching at another school, and so of course I had to get over that first because that was a great shock to me. And I told her, well, the only way I think you're going to leave is if I'm hooked to your ankle and you're dragging me out the door. That we're going to try and find a way to figure out how we can keep you here. And I said, well, what would be helpful for you? Because I know you enjoy the scholarship, you love the teaching, you love the things you do with communities and churches around here. What else is missing at the seminary? And then she talked about, of course, her history, her work, as we know, seminal work in womanist studies and womanist theology. And she said she really felt that she wanted to have a place where that could thrive in the work of the institution where she was. And I thought, as we talked together, you know, is it possible that Richmond might be a place, and Richmond may well be a perfect place given its history and given the way in which we want to try to find ways to counter that history, to think about creative possibilities of rising above that history, engaging that history with a liberative agenda, and is there a way in which we could think together about that? And she said, well, if the school is willing to think about that, I'm ready and I'm on board. And I said, well, we're going to get the school to think about it.
The whole approach of womanism is for self as a Black woman, but also as community. And that includes men, that includes children, that includes everybody.
I think it was a really sort of organic outgrowth of who Dr. Cannon was. I think she was sort of doing everything unofficially that the center just made official. She had been her whole life focused on opening spaces, right? So getting into a space and then making space for others, right? And when she talked about students pedagogically, she talked about assignments being like containers, but they had to fill them with their own souls.
That mining of the work our souls must have. How are we in this perennial quest for liberation that Dr. Cannon talked about, and what are the fruits of that quest and that labor, and what are the sources that we use to track the way Black women move and make ethical decisions and make survival decisions. All of those things are things that I think we do in our own lives, and we can start to recognize the patterns of how we move. But the Womanist frameworks helps us to see that there is rhyme and reason and rhythm to how we move and how we make decisions, and the things that we might think are just my gut tells me to do this. It's like, no, Dr. Cannon would say that's epistemological privilege. Like there is wisdom from the elders that comes. And so there are all these things that embody being a Black woman, being a Black church woman in the world. And we may not be able to name the ways in which we move or the reasons why we move the way that we do. And womanist theology and womanist practice helps us to name it and put language to it and to share it and to help others kind of come into that embodiment of who we are and how we be in the world.
That is one of the things that we can contribute to the future, and assure them and affirm them and learn from them as well. So it's a two-way street. It's information sharing across the spectrum, across the ages.
I was invited to the table to be a part of the design committee. I was humbled, and I was like, Dr. Cannon, I don't think I'm what you're looking for, but she helped me, which is all what Womanist is about and who Dr. Cannon is, helping me to understand the importance of brilliant women coming together, sisterhood, right? And what we could do in the academy, in the church, and in the community.
She was an administrator, the way she teaches her classes. It goes far beyond putting a syllabus together and getting students to do work.
In one of our one-on-one sessions that she liked to have with students, she talked about the imagining of this center. And she asked me, as a seminary student, would I be willing to do a free write around the purpose of a center like this? Like, what would it be like for me as a Black woman, queer, seminarian, right, whose work and scholarship centered around sex and faith? What would it mean to have this center?
She trusted everyone sitting at the table. I love the way that she would say, this is your area. I believe you are the expert. I need you to move in what you know. And if you need something else, tell me and I'll find it. And it was like a beautiful opportunity to watch her orchestrate women of all backgrounds, of all desires, to bring forth the conference. And so it was like, how does she move? She moved people like I want to move in events and coordinate events. Like in the background, things are happening and they come together somehow, and sometimes you don't see it. Katie did that with people, and it was breathtaking.
All of the moments were moments where she would try to invoke from us what the center ought to be. She didn't really demand or command a particular, objective outcome. What she constantly said was she didn't really want it to only be about her, but that she wanted it to be something that would be for Black women of every stripe, of every class, of every, of coming from all regions and every background and every discipline, to be able to find a place where they could be themselves, where they could be articulate and express their creative genius, their intellectual genius and brilliance, and bring that out of themselves, a place where they could do that safely and where it would be supported, but also that where we would create legacy and kind of a history-making project together, but not so much that it was only about her, but that it was about all the ways that Black women show up and express God and divine and what's eternal and rich and powerful and glorious about life.
I see the center as helping to bridge
to be a bridge for Black women to be able to truly recognize that they have a voice and that they have value, and for them to have a safe place to express themselves.
The Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership, its formation, right, in 2018, as I've already named, also tells us that 3 years in 2021 and into the future later, that there is not only a history and a legacy that we're forming, but there's certainly a future to come for the center. When we think about the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership is the only center across ATS schools, Association of Theological Schools, across divinity schools, across seminaries, that has a designated center for the cultivation of Black women. This is not only legacy building work, but extraordinary trailblazing, foregrounding work in that right. But in addition to that, the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership, our mission is to nurture the soul of Black women as they cultivate pathways to whole communities. It's also, as a vision, is to become the global premier center for womanist theory and practice.
This center being in place will allow us to come and find resources that will broaden our horizon, and allow us to meet other womanists on the same journey as we are. Some who are older, who have a lot more wisdom and experience, and some like me who are new on this journey to finding out who they are.
The seat of privilege that I did sit at, being a part of an empowering sisterhood group, and that not every woman has that. And it's important that I take that kind of love and empowerment everywhere I go.
It has to be intentionally generational, because there is wisdom that can be passed on, and both the older generations, the elders and the young, there are some common themes that it doesn't make any difference where you are in the spectrum. There are some common things that are going to be shared by everybody, and I think what the elders can offer are they can tell you where the potholes are. Now you might figure out how to do it differently from your generation, but at least we can say, look out for that, or you need to pay attention to this. Now, how you figure out how you're going to handle that probably has to come out of your generation. This is how we handle it. It might not work this way.
You are immediately affirmed in womanist spaces without qualification to just say, what do you want to do? Like, that's what happened to me when I met Melanie Jones, the director. I thought we were just having lunch, Black girls meeting. She had just moved to Richmond, and I was like, oh, I have a new friend. And then she just said, do you want to do something with the center? Well, write us a proposal and tell us what you want to do, and we'll do it. And that was stunning to me, just to have someone say, what do you want to do? Tell us, yes. And I didn't have to explain. I didn't have to send resumes or writing samples or references. It was just, yes, you are enough. And you have gifts to bring, and I've seen that repeatedly through, I think Reverend Lisa here at Union Presbyterian, she was so excited to publish her Lenting Guide, or, as we have met other young Black women artists, to just say, oh, you're beautiful, you're talented, you're brilliant, come and tell us what you want to do, or come and tell us your vision of what you see. It's not prescriptive for people to have that freedom to say, here's what I envision. And have a group that says yes and help resource you to make it happen is I think a gift of womanist theology or womanist practice, but I think that's part of Dr. Cannon's spirit also.
It's not simply words on a page, but it is a story we have to tell. It's a thought we must share.
Being a dreamer is not available for everyone. You have African American women are just struggling, and they are just surviving. And they don't have the opportunity to dream. And so if you have that time, you need to seize it so that you can share it with others. And so as we move forward with the Center for Womanist Leadership, or I should say the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership, I hope that the women that take part of that are aware of everything that went into it, and how they can continue to encourage and motivate others so they can continue with that intergenerational mindset of saying, hey, I can tell my stories, but then I want my friends and my daughters and my nieces and my cousins to have a platform and a place to do the same.
There's hope for the future, and it is powerful. So I hope that the center can grow and expand in a way that can really meet the global community in ways that we really can't imagine right now. But I think the youth will help us figure that out.
The Reverend Melanie C. Jones is a womanist ethicist, millennial preacher, and intellectual activist. Melanie joined the Union Presbyterian Seminary faculty as instructor of ethics, theology, and culture, and inaugural director of the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership in fall 2019. Formerly, Melanie served as the first Crump visiting professor and Black religious scholar in residence at Seminary of the Southwest in Austin, Texas, and lecturer at Bright Divinity School in Fort Worth, Texas, American Baptist College in Nashville, Tennessee, Chicago Theological Seminary, and the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, Illinois. Melanie is a thinking woman of faith, embodying radical love and revolutionary justice in the academy, church, and global community. Melanie earned a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Political Science from Howard University and a Master of Divinity with a certificate in Black Church Studies from Vanderbilt University Divinity School. Currently, Melanie is completing a Doctor of Philosophy degree at Chicago Theological Seminary. Melanie's research engages womanist theological ethics and sacred texts, millennials and faith, Black aesthetics, and digital technocultures. For her distinguished research, Melanie has received notable fellowships and scholarships including the Forum for Theological Exploration, the Louisville Institute, Wabash Center, Villanova University Center for Church Management, and the Henry Luce Foundation. Committed to enlivening a world where Black women and girls are whole and free, Melanie serves professional societies and international boards as a global leader in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Black Religious Scholars Group, and Daughters of the African Atlantic Fund. Melanie is co-founder of the Millennial Womanism Project and co-host of the Womanist Salon, an intergenerational, woke womanist podcast that integrates the hair salon as site, source, and sanctuary for authentic Black sisterhood. Melanie is the youngest ordained woman minister at South Suburban Missionary Baptist Church, under the leadership of her beloved mother, Pastor Annette Jones. A third-generation ordained Baptist preacher and sought-after lecturer, Melanie is an emerging millennial voice with noted academic and popular publications, as well as features on television, radio, and news outlets. Follow Melanie at www.revmelanie.com and at RevMelanieJ on social media.
In her salient text, Katie's Canon, Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon frames the moral wisdom of Black women through recalling the healing memory of her grandmother. Cannon writes, quote, "My grandmother, Rosa Cornelia White Little, was the gatekeeper in the land of counterpain. She was always available with salves, hot towels, and liniments to cure physical aches and spiritual ills. As a charismatic healer, Grandma Rosie's practice consisted of diagnosis, treatment, and prevention in the maintenance of overall wholeness." In 1983, Cannon writes, "Womanism became my new gatekeeper in my land of counterpain." The term womanist describes a growing field of study and social movement that takes the historical and contemporary experiences of Black women seriously, while advocating for the wholeness and well-being of all humanity. Alice Walker, a brilliant poet and novelist, most notably known for her Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Color Purple, put definition to the term womanist in her 1983 collection of essays, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, Womanist Prose. Walker's definition names the distinctive political aims of Black women beyond the white feminist scope in the 1980s. Though Walker's definition is a point of departure for many, the womanist paradigm has taken shape since the 1980s in multiple academic disciplines, most notably religious studies. The womanist theological enterprise is a more than 30-year-old collaborative discourse initiated by Black female theologians, ethicists, biblical scholars, historians, pastoral caregivers, religious leaders, and laity who engage the lived experiences of Black women in theory and praxis. While feminist theology rallied against patriarchy and domineering forces threatening women's experiences, some feminists, even into the 1970s, maintained a privileged blindness that ignored women's complex and contradicting identities, particularly at the intersections of race and class. Black liberation theology, in its initial emergence in the 1960s and 70s, even with a quest for liberation of an oppressed African American people, failed to address issues concerning gender. Bold and daring Black women searching for a critically engaged intellectual dwelling place in the 1980s, rather than waiting on feminists or Black male liberationists to open the door of inclusion, utilize their own socio-cultural realities, theological proclivities, and mother wit to build a solid foundation for a home of their own. Womanism is an audacious endeavor that engages Black women at its radically subjective center and involves all persons seeking justice. The formation of the Center for Womanist Leadership reflects the visionary insight of the late Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon. As her last living testament, Dr. Cannon launched the Center for Womanist Leadership in April of 2018, on the 44th anniversary of her ordination as the first African American woman ordained in the Presbyterian Church. She did this spring inaugural conference featuring 14 womanist thinkers across generations and notably the womanist progenitor Alice Walker as a keynote speaker. Dr. Cannon organized and founded the Center for Womanist Leadership just months before a brief illness with acute leukemia. No one can deny that Dr. Cannon did the work of empowering, equipping, and setting people free. Dr. Cannon did the work her soul must have. Today, roughly 3 years since her passing, the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership at Union Presbyterian Seminary recognizes the significance of centering Black women's experiences and wisdom as viable sources and resources for theological education for the global community. The center serves as a site of participatory learning for scholars, students, clergy, laity, activists, artists, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, marking it as one of a kind across seminaries, divinity schools, and graduate institutions across the nation. In line with its strategic plan for the church and the world, with the incredible support of President Blunt, the Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends, Union Presbyterian Seminary continues to support and encourage the development of the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership as it inspires, equips, connects, and supports Black women divinely motivated to serve as change makers in their community. Though the early occurrence of the novel coronavirus traces back to winter 2019, the White House declared a national emergency and global pandemic on March 13, 2020. Federal, state, and local governments moved swiftly to close schools, institutions, retail stores, restaurants, physical plants, and places of worship to contain the virus. For many, March 13th was a day of reckoning, that a national shutdown could no longer be evaded as stay-at-home orders loomed and public health warnings intensified. For Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old Black millennial woman, March 13th marked a fatal ending as Louisville police barged into her home under a no-knock warrant and fired several rounds that resulted in her untimely death. Seemingly, Americans were caught in the crosshairs of multiple pandemics, or an unholy trinity of COVID-19, COVID-16-19, and what womanist ethicist Stacey Floyd Thomas names as COVID-45. That revealed devastating consequences for Black lives in America that has been 400 years in the making. While COVID-19 characterizes a deadly virus strand that today's living generations have never seen before, American greed and an untouchable sense of entitlement elevated its impact on American soil. The coronavirus's disproportionate effects and the climbing death toll for people of color in this nation revealed death-dealing daily attacks against Black life. COVID-19 exposed that the world was already in crisis before the pandemic, with devastating realities of food insecurity and scarcity, unequal access to health care, inadequate care for trauma and violence, rising unemployment, the collapse of small businesses, unfair wages, ensuring the majority can barely make ends to meet to sustain their basic needs, skyrocketing homelessness, debilitating student debt, an economic bailout for the rich coupled with economic hardship for the poor, criminalizing of the impoverished, unjust treatment toward the incarcerated, and most significantly, an increasing awareness of poor governance and leadership as high as the nation's capital. As we grieve the loss of more than 500,000 lives lost to COVID-19, historians will remember 2020 as the year of global pandemic and protests. Thousands of protesters in the summer of 2020 flooded the streets of major cities across the globe, risking health to contest the deaths of fallen Black bodies and making a millennial-led Black Lives Matter one of the largest social movements in history. More than 150 million also risked their lives to power the polls in one of the largest voter turnouts in American history. We will also remember the beginning of 2021 with a Capitol coup and an insurrection that exposed American democracy as yet to be fulfilled. And the hill we climb, in the words of Amanda Gorman, may reveal slow progress and only glimmers of hope with a new administration. COVID-19 changed everything, especially the technologies of faith, with new methods and new modes for how we worship, how we gather, how we strategize, organize, work, and learn and grow together. Union Presbyterian Seminary closed its campuses to faculty, staff, students, and shifted all course instruction online for the 2020 and 2021 school years in response to this global pandemic, with sincere interest to maintain the safety and health of presenters and constituents, and while hearing the voices of more than 200 constituents by survey, we made the conscious decision to shift the 2021 spring conference fully online, marking our first virtual conference. The conference theme, the hinges upon which the future swings, the living legacy of womanism as a gateway to our future, builds on Katie Cannon's naming of womanism as a gatekeeper in the land of counterpain, bearing the moral and communal wisdom to liberate communities and to make whole. According to Cannon, by asking heretofore undreamed and unfamiliar questions of every aspect of the theological traditions to which we are heirs, womanists, feminists, and mujerista scholars play a significant role in authorizing God talk. The task of womanism, in Cannon's view, is to debunk the lies, designed to ensure that we were never meant to survive, to discern the truth by asking the hard questions, and to determine the steps to cultivate pathways to whole communities. This spring conference is the premier gathering of womanist scholars, practitioners, activists, and leaders in the nation. The conference features leading womanist voices who explore pressing questions, engage rigorous inquiry, and energize open dialogue essential to the freedom and flourishing of Black womanhood. Through panel presentations, table talks, plenaries, and multifaceted, transgenerational, innovative conversations across disciplines, this conference is the culmination of the work of the center, integrating its 6 core tenets: womanist wellness, witness, wisdom, worship, wares, and works, while also embodying the interconnections that make womanist leadership flourish. We began this conference with a depth of gratitude for God, the ancestors, Dr. Cannon and her vision, and every single person who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this 3-day virtual experience possible. We are incredibly grateful for sponsors, vendors, exhibitors, and our numerous partners. We have a depth of gratitude for every speaker, presenter, moderator, artist, and volunteer for sharing your gifts with us this weekend. And most importantly, we are grateful for all of you who registered and joined this conference to recenter, reposition, and reckon with the future. In line with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, when she says the litmus test for America is its treatment toward Black women, we also believe that womanism is alive. Its approaches are interdisciplinary, transgenerational, multi-faith, but ultimately it is aimed at mining the motherlode of Black women's sagacious wisdom and prophetic witness to heal and make whole. I am convinced the future is womanist. Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Spring Conference, the hinges upon which the future swings.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Blunt. I am the president of Union Presbyterian Seminary, and I want to welcome you to this virtual conference, the 2021 Center for Womanist Leadership Conference, the hinges upon which the future swings, the living legacy of womanism as a gateway to our futures. And behind me, you can see our wonderful quad. And during these days of virtual gatherings, I'm sorry we can't invite you to be here in person on the campus, but at least you'll have a chance to see our beautiful quad and be with me and be with us in spirit in this way, in this virtual means. I'd like to show you a little bit about this campus, and if you would come and walk with me a little bit, I can show you around. Behind me, you can see the Morton Library. The library is one of the heartbeats of any academic institution. This is one of the finest theological libraries anywhere in our country. We're very proud of the work that is done there, the resources that are available there, and it will be a wonderful resource, we think, for the Center for Womanist Leadership into the future. You'll also see over to my right our campus center, where we have our refectory and a cafe, and then we also have students living on the top 2 floors. And now over here to my right is Watts Hall. Watts Hall is the building where Katie had her office. We did a great deal of activity as we introduced the work of the Womanist Center early on in our chapel here. You can see the chapel that comes out, extends from the back part of Watts Hall. Watts Hall proper was built in 1898. This chapel was added in the early 1900s. You can also see as we move around to my left is the Early Center. The Early Center also has a chapel where we do more contemporary worship and other programming. It also has one of our main lecture halls and also faculty offices and classroom spaces. In the Rose Reception Hall here, we have the portrait of Katie Geneva Cannon. We wanted Katie to be there. She's watching us all the time as we go about our business, to chapel, to classrooms, as we invite guests to the seminary. It's a wonderful space. And here we are in the Early Center, one of the main places for our teaching. This is the Rose Reception Hall. Behind me is one of our main lecture halls, and the chapel for contemporary worship is in front of me. But one of the most important things here is this portrait of Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon. We thought that the appropriate place for her portrait would be in a teaching space, so that when students are going to classrooms, when people are here visiting for whatever reason, or when people are going to the chapel, they always will be able to come by and see Katie looking out on them, reminding all of us as a great teacher why we're here, to learn, to thrive, to grow.
Greetings, my name is Richard Boyce. I'm privileged to be the Vice President and Dean of the Charlotte Extension Campus of Union Presbyterian Seminary. If you've been here before, you'll recognize where I'm standing. This cross marks the heart of our campus here in Charlotte. This is a cross all the way from the state of Texas, and this cross is the center of our life here in Charlotte. I want to invite you to join us for this upcoming conference by leading you to the entrance of our campus. The theme of our upcoming conference for 2021 is the hinges upon which the future swings. And I'd like to point out this door and its hinges and invite the Charlotte community to join us in this upcoming conference. The argument is womanist theology may provide us a gateway, a door to the future of the church. I know I have a lot to learn about the future of the church, and I think this conference may give us some hope, may give us some determination and courage. So come be a part of this exciting conference sponsored by the Womanist Leadership Center in Richmond. Charlotte, you're on board. You don't have to drive up I-85 past Kannapolis where Katie Geneva Cannon was born. You can come via Zoom and participate in all aspects of this conference. It's an opportunity you do not want to miss.
My name is Bridget Cannon, and on behalf of the Cannon family, we are delighted to welcome you to the 2021 Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership's virtual conference. Now, ideally, we want to have this face-to-face where we can break bread together, where we can congregate in the hallways and spark up conversations, or just greet each other with a warm hug. But due to the current climate, we have adjusted and we will move forward. My Aunt Kate had a reputation of being an excellent listener, an inspirational speaker, and a beacon of light that guided women to feel empowered and encouraged to reach new heights. Now, during this conference, we challenge you to harness that same type of energy to build relationships, to motivate one another, to immerse yourselves in womanist thought. And as the great Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon said, do the work your soul must have, because you are indeed the hinges upon which the future swings. Again, welcome and enjoy this experience that helps keep Dr. Cannon's legacy alive. Thank you.
Praised for their authentic, soulful, and orchestral sound, the String Queens, also known as TSQ, is a dynamic trio that creates stimulating musical experiences that inspire diverse audiences to love, hope, feel, and imagine. With an array of repertoire spanning from the Baroque era to the Jazz age to today's Billboard Hot 100 chart, TSQ performs versatile programs that transport audiences through time and a multitude of musical genres. Based in Washington, D.C., TSQ members have been featured in famed performance venues across 4 continents, including Carnegie Hall, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the Howard Theater, Royal Festival Hall, Radio City Music Hall, Shanghai Grand Theater, the Moscow Conservatory, and Blues Alley, to name a few. TSQ members have collaborated with artists throughout the music industry, including Ledisi, Solange, Leslie Odom Jr., Janelle Monáe, Jennifer Hudson, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Common, Andra Day, and the late Aretha Franklin, among others. As chamber and orchestral musicians, TSQ members have performed under the batons of legendary musical directors Ray Chu, Adam Blackstone, and many more. Recognized by DC's leading news network, WUSA 9, as School Teachers by Day and Concert Performers by Night, they have been honored as the 2020 Aspire Awardees by Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. They also collaborated with Washington Performing Arts to launch a series of concerts and education outreach programs with the organization as their 2019-2020 ensemble in residence for their signature community engagement initiative titled Mars Arts DC. In late 2019, TSQ premiered their debut album at legendary jazz venue Blues Alley. The album is now available for purchase on the TSQ website and all major digital outlets. They performed their second album, Our Favorite Things, in late November 2020. In January of 2021, the group performed during the We Are One celebration as a part of the official presidential inauguration and a special tribute dedicated to Vice President Kamala Harris.
Hello everyone, we are the String Queens and we are so excited to be with you all today for a very special concert. My name is Kendall Isidore and I'm on violin. To my left is Elise Sharp, she is playing the cello. And to my far left we have Dawn Johnson on viola. We're going to bring you some of our favorite tunes today, but first we're going to start with the Spirituals medley, which includes We Shall Overcome, Wade in the Water, and Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem. Please enjoy.
Alicia believes that Black communities deserve what all communities deserve, to be powerful in every aspect of their lives. An author, political strategist, organizer, and cheeseburger enthusiast, Alicia founded the Black Futures Lab to make Black communities powerful in politics. In 2018, the Black Futures Lab conducted the Black Census Project, the largest survey of Black communities in over 150 years. Alicia is the co-creator of #Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter Global Network, an international organizing project to end state violence and oppression against Black people. The Black Lives Matter Global Network now has 40 chapters in 4 countries. She also serves as the Strategy and Partnership Director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance, the nation's premier voice for millions of domestic workers in the United States. Additionally, Alicia is the co-founder of Supermajority, a new home for women's activism. Alicia has become a powerful voice in the media and frequently contributes thoughtful opinion pieces and expert commentary on politics, race, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Her work is featured in Time, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, The Guardian, Elle, and Essence. In addition, Alicia has received numerous accolades and recognitions, including being on the cover of Time's 100 Most Influential People in the World issue, named to Time's 100 Women of the Year list, Bloomberg 50, BBC's 100 Women 2020, Fortune's 40 Under 40, Fast Company's Queer 50 list, Politico 50, and 3-time recipient of the Roots list of 100 African American Achievers and Influencers. Alicia has received the Sydney Peace Prize Award, Adweek Beacon Award, Glamour Women's of the Year Award, Marie Claire's Dugard Award, and was honored as the Community Change Agent at BET's Black Girls Rock Awards. Alicia's first book, The Purpose of Power: How We Can Come Together When We Fall Apart, released on October 20th, 2020, with One World. She shares her thoughts on politics and pop culture on her podcast, Lady Don't Take No. Alicia warns you, hashtags don't start movements. People do.
My name is Alicia Garza, and I believe that Black communities deserve to be powerful in every area of our lives. It's why for the last 2 decades, I have worked tirelessly to build the power of communities, to interrupt that which is unconscionable, and to make a new path, forge a new way, leaving behind the limited options that have been placed in front of us. It's what led me to utter the words Black Lives Matter, first as a social media post, then as an organizing principle, and then as an organization that had grown into a powerful force with chapters all over the world, joining a generations-long Black liberation movement and stamping it with the contributions of my generation. It's what led me to create the Black Futures Lab and the Black to the Future Action Fund, where we work to make Black communities powerful in politics so that we can be powerful in the rest of our lives. Through that work, we have conducted what we believe is the largest survey of Black communities in 156 years, adding texture and nuance to the story of who is Black America, so that we can better understand America. It is what led me to write my book, The Purpose of Power: How We Come Together When We Fall Apart, a narrative that invites us into ourselves being change makers and rule makers by offering my journey, my lessons, the ones that I am learning and unlearning, as a guide. I believe that Black communities deserve to be powerful in every area of our lives. And we know that Black communities are indeed powerful. It is Black communities that have shown this country what it is made of and what it can be if it too dares to be free. It is Black communities who have endured and Black communities who have persevered because of and in spite of all of the barriers that are placed in our path. Black communities are innovators, creators, visionaries, leaders, builders, fighters, and winners, not because it is inherent within us, but because we have had to be. When our lives are shaped and determined by rigged rules that leave us out and leave us behind, we have to find a new way because we have to survive. Indeed, the last 10 years in particular have been shaped by the audacity of Black people to be free, to live lives that have dignity, to have our lives respected and valued beyond what we can produce for others. Growing up, I thought I'd missed out on the moments in history when Black people rose to break the chains of our oppression. I grew up learning about the last period of civil rights, the Freedom Riders, the lunch counter sit-ins, the Black Power movement. But when I looked around, I saw no remnants of what had once been. I vowed to work hard to make it reemerge. I didn't have any idea how to do that, where I could do that, with whom I would do that, but I knew that I wanted people like my mother to be free. I knew that I wanted to be free. And somewhere along the way, I vowed to live my life in such a way that I could be the most free version of myself. But I never imagined that I would see it in my lifetime. I just knew that I believed that Black people deserved to be powerful in every area of our lives. I wanted to be free because I was living in a community full of people who did not look like me. I spent inordinate amounts of time trying to blend in, to disappear. I was different in a world where being different meant that you were always seen as and considered to be less than, no matter the charity, no matter the goodwill. I was smart for a Black girl, well-spoken for a Black girl, accomplished for a Black girl. I was taught that being different was a curse, not by my family, which was all kinds of different. A white Jewish man marries a Black Midwestern woman with a kid and lives in a wealthy community where there were no other white Jewish men married to Black Midwestern women with a kid. I was taught that being different was a curse by this place called America. I wanted to be free because I was tired of being that girl who wasn't like the other Black people that people knew. Of course, because they didn't know many or really any, besides of course the ones that they saw on television. I wanted to be free because I was tired of seeing my mother perform gymnastic feats just to stay slightly above the waterline. I was tired of being told I needed to serve men, tired of being told to cross my legs, and tired of being told that I should try, but I probably couldn't make it. I was tired of being told that whiteness was freedom. And I'm not alone. I imagine my mother was tired too. All those late nights, I would find her at the kitchen table in the middle of the night, surrounded by bills and suffocated by a bank account that never seemed to have enough. Barefoot, I would walk down the hallway towards the light, knowing I would find my mama there, trying to figure out how to pursue her own dreams while everyone else was asleep. Eventually, her dreams became a wish that her daughter and her son would be able to accomplish all the things she didn't get to. Freedom. My mother taught me the most important lessons in organizing and building power. At the heart of it all is dignity and survival. I've spent many hours in my life knocking doors, sitting on porches and at kitchen tables, bouncing grandkids on my knee while listening to another Black person describe their freedom dreams to me. We tell each other the things that we are afraid to say out loud. That maybe the way things are set up, aren't the way things have to be. That what we are doing now isn't what we imagined we would be doing. That we know things were set up this way for us to fail, and then blame ourselves for that failure. That is the entry point to power. Admitting to ourselves and each other that even though it seems daunting, even though the road is long, even though we may die while pursuing it, and we may be killed for daring to do so, freedom is our birthright. I wrote The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart, because I believe that we deserve to be powerful in every area of our lives, and that most of us who want that freedom are scared to pursue it because we don't know where to begin, how to begin, if what we encounter is what we should expect, if our efforts will be fruitful or a failure. My book doesn't provide the answers to those questions. Instead, my book asks what we lose if we don't at least try. One of our biggest challenges is that for too many of us, we confuse power with empowerment. We confuse what it means to feel good about ourselves with what it means to make the rules and change the rules. We mistake affirmations for deciding where money goes and where it doesn't go. We collapse telling our own stories with the ability to shape the story of who we are and who we can be together. We think that sharing our dreams is the same as being able to levy consequences when the people we put in place to make decisions and move our agenda fail us. Very simply, power is about who gets what, when, and why. Empowerment is about seeing ourselves more clearly and liking what we see. My book is focused on power and examining it because of this phenomenon. Our movements cannot be powerful if we are only focused inward and not outward, if our vision is only 180 degrees as opposed to 360. We cannot be powerful if we are not clear that there is more than one movement that is operating right now, fighting to shape and reshape this country with impacts that are global. Conservatives have built a powerful movement over the last 40 years that had amassed power that is shaping our lives every single day. Their movement began much like ours, nascent for many decades, until they figured out that it was not enough to be mad, that they had to channel that anger into the power to remake the rules. They focused and coalesced around undoing everything that we fought so hard for. Voting rights, gender equity, racial justice, wages and jobs, schools and education. They built institutions that could communicate their ideas and their values. They experimented, they innovated, and they focused on the small things that would one day add up to something much bigger. The fruits of their labor is what we are all experiencing today. A lack of dignity for the many in favor of power for the few. We keep fighting because we know that we deserve to be powerful in every area of our lives, and because we have our minds stayed on freedom. Black voters have been clear since 1965 that power is our birthright. We have consistently shown up for the task of reimagining America and fighting for that reimagined America to be real. In 2020, Black voters were critical to delivering power in all three branches of government. Not because we are enamored with political parties, quite the opposite. We delivered this power because we are committed to our freedom dreams and we are determined to use every tool necessary to get us there. It is Black voters that have led us to what many have called a third Reconstruction, yet another time in this country's history where we are faced with the question of how we come together when we fall apart. We are being called to name what kind of builders we will be and what we will construct together. In my freedom dreams, we are building a new world where none of us get left behind. A world where our relationships to each other and to the planet are nurtured and nurturing. A world where the way we come together is not predatory or parasitic, but instead cooperative and interdependent, cognizant of the ways in which we depend on each other to survive, and committed to lives where we can live our freedom dreams out loud during the day as well as at night. Where women like me and women not like me can be the most free versions of ourselves. When we fall apart, it is an opportunity to reconstruct ourselves, each other, together. The opportunities to do so do not come often, but when they do, we must reach for them and each other as if it could be the last chance we have to finally do it right.
For our next two selections, we are going to celebrate the power of women. The first selection we're going to play for you is You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman by the Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin. After that, we are going to move into Isn't She Lovely, written by one of Aretha Franklin's very dear friends, Stevie Wonder. Please enjoy. Thank you all so much for having us today. We hope you enjoyed our concert. Again, we are the String Queens. On violin, we have Miss Kendall Isidore. On cello, we have Mrs. A. Lee Sharp. And I am Dawn Johnson on viola. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Our handle is @TheStringQueens. We also have a website where you can learn more about us, which is www.thestringqueens.com. We now invite you to enjoy a special encore performance. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much for having us today. We hope you enjoyed our concert. Again, we are the String Queens. On violin, we have Miss Kendall Isidore. On cello, we have Mrs. Ailey Sharp. And I am Dawn Johnson on viola. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Our handle is @TheStringQueens. We also have a website where you can learn more about us, which is www.thestringqueens.com. We now invite you to enjoy a special encore performance. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.